and it's about the Khan's rise to gangster stardom. Like
it's a.
Ed, what's up, man?
If anybody else has been watching the video on this, you'll know I'm not in my apartment. I'm back at home yet again. And
back at home.
This actually does mark the somewhat anniversary of our RR, because the last time I was here doing that is when we did that review. So
Really?
It's kind of crazy. When did we do RR? Oh no, that was December.
Yeah, it was like fall of last year.
I haven't slept in 2 days. Ignore me.
Yeah,
but
well,
I'm
it's
still
okay.
back home.
He's back home again. Well, like we said, we were going to be back in our parts, in Ed's chaotic background, and my $25 Hobby Lobby background, and now we're not again. So Ed's on the move, and then I'll be on the move in a couple weeks again.
Are you? Oh my God!
I got to go back to Texas in a couple weeks. So yeah, it's just a
show. What's great is that we can continue to do this show regardless of where we are, which is pretty cool.
Exactly. That's all that matters. We can continue to bring you great reviews, no matter where we are. And today we have the poll winner, Gangs of Wasseypur. I had to look up the pronunciation. The Gangs of Wasseypur, Part 1. Part 2 may be coming very soon, may not be coming very soon. You may not have to wait till next Tuesday. But today we're talking about Part 1. It is the 2012 film, directed, or film series, I guess I should say, Part 1 and Part 2, directed by, oh boy, that's a hard name to say, Anurag Kashyap, and it's the story of a family through multi-generational gang violence and the come up that they had, I guess you could say, right? How they came up through the gang scene, and they started from nothing, started from the bottom, now they're here, right? That's how we'll describe Gangs of Wasseypur. I would recap the whole film, but it's, there's a lot to recap here. So I think we should...
To be fair, people would want that, right? I think people would be staying
maybe
for
if
a
you guys
2-hour
want,
recap video.
Yeah, if you guys want like a 5-minute recap of the film, I will do it. A bad recap. Maybe that should be like a YouTube short series we do. Alex's bad recaps. But yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot of characters to get through. I'm not very good at names or anything like that, but overall, you should know it takes place in the city or region. Someone correct me in the comments, please. But that's what we have you guys for, of Wasseypur, and it's about the Khan's rise to gangster stardom.
Like it's American Idol.
Yeah, it's like American Idol. Yeah, it all starts with the Shadid Khan back in, I think, 1941 is when it first starts. Yeah, 1940. It's a 60-year-long film, guys. It's a lot. But anyway, we are just gonna jump right into the review, because again, the recap is not gonna make any sense, and I'm gonna just butcher it. So I think I want to start with the review really fast, because I do have a confession to make to you, Ed. I don't know if you know this about me. I'm not a gangster movie guy.
Okay.
I think Martin Scorsese is probably one of the most overrated directors ever on planet Earth. I've only seen The Godfather 1, and I fell asleep through it halfway through. And I've never seen The Godfather Part 2. So that's where I'm coming into this movie.
It's a good frame of reference.
Yeah, I want people to know that before I start talking about it. There were a lot of comments on the poll. A lot of comments. I can't remember people's names. I think one was Jen. That's just her name. Jen.
Hi, Jen.
She said, it won't be your guys' cup of tea. And Jen, ooh, you are partially right.
Partially. Okay. All right.
Look, I'm going to talk about the first maybe 45 minutes to hour of this film were brutal. And I was like, I'm going to turn this movie off. I'm not going to watch part 2. I'm going to text Ed. We're going to watch a different film. We're going to watch Piku instead. I am not enjoying this movie at all. It is insanely dialogue heavy. Insanely dialogue heavy. And it moves. The first hour of this movie moves at what I feel like is a snail's pace. And I think that's even faster than what it actually moves at. After the first hour, so I have a lot of problems with the first hour. After the first hour, I actually finally got into it. Once we got into let me bring my notes up because there's a lot of names that I'm gonna. Yeah, there's a lot of names that I.
Which out of the 15 time periods are we talking about here?
So Shadi Khan is that's the main guy that they kill in the beginning. It's one of his son. I can't remember his son's name. Oh boy.
Sardar?
Oh, Sardar. Yeah, Sardar Khan. How can I forget Sardar? Yeah, Sardar Khan. When he comes in and he starts making moves against Ramadhir Singh in the coal industry and starts actually running gangster stuff, I was like, I'm getting into it. I can like it, and it really what saved the film. And again, I'm not putting this above, I'm not even putting this above English. Like this ain't going above any of those. But what got me finally back into it is like there was so many good one-liners that is just it really, really works. I mean, like when Sardar Khan at one point says, even the biggest balls are subservient to the dick. What? Oh,
that's a great line. That is one of the better lines.
That is a fantastic line. And there's like so many great lines. Like Ramadhir Singh at one point says, if a worm dreams of becoming a lion, let him. Like that's all that stuff started working. And you see Sardar Khan become the gangster and become the leader. And like the family start to be built. That's where I started to go, okay, I can start to get behind this movie. But the first hour of it, Ed, holy moly, I was like, I gotta take some coffee or something. I'm barely making it through this. But what did you think of it, Ed? Oh boy, guys, get ready. Buckle up, followers.
Well, first of all, the autistic person. No, I'm just kidding. No, to be straight up honest with you, I 100% agree with you. I had the same exact reaction, and to preface my feelings about gangster films as well, I don't sought out gangster movies. I typically find them usually to be fairly boring, in my opinion.
You've seen one, you've seen them all, right?
You kind of see when you kind of see them all in a sense, and this is no different, really. I think it obviously pays a lot of homage and takes away from a lot of Scorsese and Coppola, obviously. I mean, it basically is in that line. It's India's, Godfather.
Yeah.
And I can see that. The money's on the screen, by the way. There's a lot of great production, obviously. How long did it take to shoot? Fucking 5 years. Everything's there. They obviously love the source material, and they went all in. It's very rare I cared about anything happening. My note here that I have is I just don't care. Here's the thing about, look, these types of stories, and this type of story is not just, the story of here's two factions or multiple factions trying to win this throne, right? That kind of story, and then just betrayal and who knows who's gonna die. Like that's not exclusive to gangster films. Obviously, we've seen that in most famously now Game of Thrones. It's existed through time. However, it's very rare for me that I give a shit about stories like that because it for me, it kind of makes its rules up along the way. And it's hard to kind of get attached to anybody, particularly because most of the people are just asshole. Like they're absolutely horrible. So for me for me personally, I don't typically in these stories. I typically don't have a lot of people that I would even care to live, because it's like they kind of deserve it in a way.
Yeah.
And so overall, I just don't care who sits on the throne. I really don't give a shit, because all of you are shitheads and you're all going to do the same thing. So it's like, whatever. So that part of the story just doesn't work, which is why, like, basically the entire movie for me was like, whatever. I could care less about like the actual action. That being said, yeah, I guess I could say the same thing. Like the latter half of this movie is definitely better than the first half. The first half is so brutal because there's a lot to get through. I get that. And there's a lot of setup and all these things. But here's what's like what is the worst part of Gangs of Wasseypur for me. You don't have a Robert De Niro in this movie. You don't have these I wouldn't say these characters or actors who I believe are at that caliber at all. And I just, again, nobody has that magnetism. I didn't feel like anybody had that charisma that really, in part one,
very true.
And
very true.
In part one, I want to make that very clear.
Yes.
We'll get to
only part
two.
one. Yes.
But part one, there were parts where I just felt I couldn't help but feel like, okay, we're just, this is kind of like a knockoff of just what's come before. And then fair enough, that's fine. But it's just, there was nothing new introduced. Unlike a lot of Indian films that I feel like actually have the strength to like actually throw something fresh at us than even American movies do, I felt like this one didn't. And so, there's a lot to love about the filmmakers and their passion for the project. But at the end of it all, I found myself it's too long. This could have been cut.
Yeah,
I didn't need a lot of it, and it's just trying to be epic for epic's sake. I felt like, and it's like, so overall, I didn't enjoy it, to be honest with you. And so Jen, you were right. So
yeah,
you're absolutely correct.
Jen, you were 100% right. I don't think this is not
for me or
a film I would rewatch again. Whereas I've watched, Three Idiots once or twice already. And like, I can see that. Let's start here, actually. So do you think that, as we continue to grow in this culture and learn in this culture, do you think that we'll come back to this movie, rewatch it, and better understand it and be more engrossed in the culture, in the world? Or do you feel like it's probably not? Because I do think that maybe this was our first film that did have the big kind of culture shock behind it. Because, I've seen other YouTubers all say this is an A-rated film, and I watch some of their videos and I'm like, dude, like there's no way you picked up all this information. There's no way. No way an American can understand exactly what's going on,
But I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't think so.
So do you think that, being more engrossed in the culture, we could enjoy it more? Or meh?
No, because not for me, because that wasn't my issue. It wasn't my issue with the movie. That's not the issue. I was thoroughly engrossed with the world building. I mean, the thing that I was just completely taken aback by was just the magnitude of places they had to shoot. The amount of setups they had. It was endless. It was endless. They would shoot just like simple scenes in one room that we never see again. Yeah. So like, again, like the money's on screen, and I really commend the filmmakers for really just giving it their all, and really like the world building was fantastic. But at the end of the day, again, for me, that wasn't the issue at all. I understood the culture. I mean, I don't understand the culture all the way, but I get it. It's not too different from other gangster films that I've seen.
Right.
It's fairly. So I would say no. Yeah, no, I would say no. How about you? Yeah. Do you feel like you would? No, you said you probably not.
I don't think I would either. No, I think I think other before we talk about things we had some issues with in detail, I do agree. Like, it's not too much different than other gangster films. Like, it's very info heavy, very narrator heavy, just dumping a bunch of information on you. And there are pockets of movies, and really both movies, where there's just so much information thrown at you. You're kind of like, what the fuck just happened? Can you just show us that happening instead of the montages of the mom crying or something like that? Just, show us show us what's going on a little bit more, I think would have helped me a lot more. But it's just so descriptive heavy in the first hour, 40 minutes of this movie that you're kind of like, you know, yeah, you're just like, oh boy, this is a lot to this is a lot to take in. Yeah,
I there was a second where I started to think, I was like, do we really need that first hour? I'm not 100% sure because when Sardar hits, once he gets in, the movie significantly picks up.
Absolutely.
And I was like, couldn't we just like cover all that in like a 1 minute intro or something like that? Like I don't understand the necessity of having all that, because basically Shadid, right? That's his name, the father, the one who started it all. Khan.
Yeah, Shadid Khan, the man that was massive man.
Shahid.
Oh yeah, Shahid.
I get. I mean, it was, I get why you had to why you may feel the need to show that, but at the same time, I felt like maybe it was for epic's sake, but I just didn't feel like that was necessary, and to make a movie that felt like was interesting at least. Yeah, I needed something to pick up quick.
To me, I think because I agree. I think a more interesting tactic would have been, hey, let's start with Sardar Khan and let's show him starting building his empire, and this guy, he's coming up, he's this big hungry guy, he's hustling, he's working. Yeah. And then you have that scene, right, where they go and meet Ramadhir Singh, the minister, where they go and meet him, right? And he has the umbrella. Yeah. And like if you show then and then like maybe like a 10-minute flashback to Ramadhir Singh having his father killed, that I think is a much more effective, way of, grabbing the audience and saying, hey, here you go. Here's why Sardar Khan cares so much about this man. Here's why he wants to be the king of Wasseypur or the minister or whatever it may be. You're right, 100%. And I think we're talking a difference here of style in terms of like, it's a very diary. It's like diary storytelling. You have to go through. You have to. It's like reading someone's diary. You probably shouldn't skip ahead because it's done in such a sequential way. And fine, fair enough. But like a diary, I'm sure there are days you just don't need. You just don't. I feel like it doesn't make for interesting storytelling, and it's not particularly exciting. And fair enough. They obviously went with that choice early on. They were like, we're going to tell it sequentially, and there are more exciting parts later, and there are parts that are just not so exciting. And whatever, it's a style choice. But when you sit down and you want to watch a movie and you're trying to be engaged and entertained, I can't say that this style particularly benefited that. Yeah. But some people are fine with that. I mean, they can sit down and just sort of like lock in. And just, they can
be
absolutely
in there,
lock in. Let's talk about some things we liked about the film. Overall, and I'll say this for both movies, this was shot on 35 millimeter. It was shot in film. Appreciate that. Yeah, that was a very underrated, but like very like great thing to do. And I wouldn't say I was overall amazed by any of the cinematography, but like there's just that certain like, I don't know, that nerdy look of nostalgia that just gets you, that just like makes your heart warm. Like, oh, he did it on film. Wow, great is that? It
looks. I mean, it does. I think it looks great. I wouldn't say it particularly had shots that what I would put up as like an Oscar-worthy thing, but overall, I thought it was shot great. I will say there were some scenes in the beginning I thought were a little dark, underlit. But overall, I thought I think the color grade on the film was really well done as well. But I also think that the film texture does add to the grittiness of it, and I think it wouldn't have been as good if it had been done digitally. So I definitely commend and the fact that again, this fucking 5-hour movie, I mean, which means they probably shot 10 hours or more worth of footage, all done on film is like, fuck it. I mean, I want to see the reel of that stretched out. It must be fucking insane. So the amount of money they must have spent just on fucking film alone isn't, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I agree with you.
Yeah, I loved that. Something else I really liked, I really appreciated, like the one shot to start the movie, which we see is the I don't remember their names, but it's you pick it up back in part 2, but it's the assaults on the Khan residence, and then you pick it up in part 2 with actually a pretty brilliant way. You actually see the opposite side of it. But we'll get to.
I agree with that.
Yeah, we'll get to part 2. But this is part 1. So the one shot to start the film was great. I liked that a lot. And then I wrote something down else that I liked a lot. Oh, I liked that we got to see. Again, it all kind of surrounds Sardar Khan and the actor who plays him. Let's see, it is Manoj Biabi. So sorry, Manoj Biabi. He plays Sardar Khan. You kind of get to get a little bit of background in him, and you can pinpoint immediately what will be his downfall. Like you can just and it's spoiler alert, it's women. Yeah, it's women, and I have a note here, and I'm like, this dude's too he's too interested in too many women. It's gonna come back to bite him. I wrote down early on in the film, I was like, this is gonna come back to bite him. But yeah, I think Sardar Khan, the performance that Manoj gives is fantastic. Like he was really great, and if you can carry that into part 2, which we'll talk about later, there's another guy who we've seen before that also carries that film in a very, very fantastic way. But yeah,
great.
He's got so many great lines in this movie that
give us a few.
I can't. The only one I wrote down, it was just, even the biggest balls are subservient to the dick. I love that.
That's also the one I wrote down. That was the one line.
That's the one that.
That's so good. That's a good line.
There's the scene where Sardar goes and meets Singh and his son, JP, I believe is his son's name.
JP,
yeah. And he literally slaps his son in front of Ramadhir. It's basically telling him to sit down. Like that's like epic badassery on a scale that a gangster movie deserves. So just how they handled that character in all was great. What did you think of his performance?
Who specifically?
Sardar.
Sardar.
Yeah.
I thought he was great. I didn't particularly care for the character that he plays, but I thought he did a fantastic job in making me feel like he's a slimy guy, right?
Yeah.
He's slimy, but he has a mission. He's on revenge, and he gets stuff done. And it's kind of an underdog story, and I respect that. He's strong. He has the heart, but he's also kind of he's not all there all the time. He can be kind of an idiot. I think you can kind of see that, but he knows what he needs to do.
Yeah.
And so I think the performer, I forget his name is really like, wow. Manoj.
Yeah.
I thought he was fantastic. He's great. The performances all around, I think, were really good. In part 1 in particular, again, we'll get to Faisal because Faisal is in part 1, and wow, what a performance. But the other performance I wanted to highlight was the mother, actually. I thought she was easily my favorite character.
Yeah.
In part 1.
Yeah.
Is Nagma. Yeah, she and all the way to part 2. Like she's fantastic. That actress is great.
Yeah.
And I loved that energy she brought with her, and that sort of no back down fieriness to her. I thought was much needed. Especially coming from one of the women in the film. I thought she was great. I thought she gave, in my opinion, I think she gave the best performance in part 1. She was really sort of that heart. Yeah, every time we came back to her, I that was probably my favorite part of the movie in general, was like going back to her and seeing how she was dealing with it, how Agar, is it Agar, the servant, or is that Nasir? No, Nasir, sorry.
Nasir.
So when Nasir, the servant, goes to help her, that whole, and then that whole sort of side story of infidelity, which never really happened, whatever. That was really interesting. I really liked all that. It didn't go too far, but I thought that was really, really good. But yeah, I thought that was a really fine performance for me. And then I really want to talk about our guy from Lunchbox, Faisal, but I'll save that for. Maybe we should.
Yeah. So we'll get to Faisal. Although in this movie he does have a tiny role. But we should mention Faisal's the third brother. There is Faisal. There is Oh man, there's so many fucking characters.
Dinesh,
Dinesh,
the first son plays also the second son.
Yes. Perpendicular. Right?
That's part two.
Yeah, I know, but it's very hard.
But perpendicular.
Yeah. Sardar has 4 sons. Is what you need to know. That's the most important thing. 5 from his mistress lady, which I wrote. That's gonna come back to bite him in the ass.
No shit.
I was like, so foreshadowing going here.
Well, it doesn't just bite him. I mean, we'll get to part 2, but clearly that whole thing explodes in everyone's face.
So to bring it all back to Nagma, like you were talking about, I think I'd have to agree with you, man. She was my favorite performance in part 1. There's so many like great moments where she's just like being a mom, and that like I think you can lose in gangster movies, right? Like there's an importance of actually being a human being, not just being this big mogul, whatever. And I will say that's one of the best parts about the film is how it does kind of have this overarch of just one family, and how, Sardar, if you abandon these kids, it could come back to bite you. But if you abandon this kid, it could come back to bite you. And the mom, just teaching her kids not to be wusses. Like, that's great. That's a great scene when she's, Dinesh has the lunch, which turns out to be a bomb. And, she's telling them, stand with, gotta say it with fucking, assertiveness. Let's go. Don't be a baby back bitch about it. Let's go.
Yeah, we tell you not to be bitches. So great.
Exactly. That's a great thing. Like, that's, I wasn't raised in, a mafia world, but that's how my mom raised me. I had like a massive cut on my knee, bleeding, and my mom was like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna get up and clean it up, or are you gonna just sit there and cry?
What do you
what
do you want me to do? I don't know.
That's how you should partially raise kids, I think. So
gotta figure it out. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a father, so I probably shouldn't say how you should or shouldn't, but anyway. So the whole overarching theme of family is still one of the best things about the movie, and it's really kind of anchored heavily by Nagma's performance. And then
very heavily, yes.
Yeah, and then also Durga Khan, his second wife.
Yes.
She also does a great job, and at one point you see her start to churn, and when she starts to churn, that's when you start to, put things together of maybe how part 2 will go. But yeah, right. I think that's those are all great performances and everything like that.
I agree.
What else do you got? Anything else that you liked about the film?
My absolute favorite moments of the film, to no one's surprise, I'm sure, are the moments of levity. So it can be, at the beginning of the film, I couldn't tell if it was like trying to be funny. I think if it was being dark on purpose.
I'm so glad you said that, because I didn't know either. It's like, am I supposed to be laughing at this, or is my humor effed up? Like, which is it?
I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell at the beginning. And then eventually you go, okay, they are being, it is a bit of a dark comedy. And those moments I thought were great. I wish I had more of them though. Mm-hmm. So one of my favorite moments is when they're making the pistols out of just like fucking car parts.
Yes.
And it keeps discharging, and they're just like, oh motherfucker. It's just like those moments of physical comedy made me laugh, and I thought that was really, really funny. That was like a legit problem for them to have. And so you have these like gangsters who would kill anybody at a moment's notice, and they just can't figure out how to work together.
Yeah.
It's so great. Those moments are really, really good. I really liked, especially when Dinesh gets shot for the first time, right? And he's like, Dad, I'm fine. He's like, no, you can't walk. Like, get in the. He's like so worried about his son.
Yeah,
he's like completely fine. It's those moments I really, really loved, and I just, man, I wish it was like more ingrained into the DNA of the movie, because it's not all the way through, but it's like those moments are really, really funny. And you see that short clip of them, the three of Sardar and Agar and the other guy, early on in their career, like throwing bombs. It's like this weird chaos that they're just having fun, and
Yeah.
those are the moments I felt like the movie really needed more of, because most of the time it's being pretty serious, and again, you're just thrown into a lot of politics, a lot of information. It gets so heavy, and you just need those moments to sort of like entertain you, like genuinely sort of just put you in an entertaining mood. And I really, really appreciated those. Other than that, I had one other scene I really liked. I like the way I liked Shahid's death scene. When the guy just comes into his room, he's building the gun he's going to kill him with, and he's just watching him. I thought that was fantastic. I love the way that was blocked, and I love the way that played out, and that was really good. And again, the last thing that it's like more part two, but I guess we could just at least preemptively talk about it now, is the movie for me really kicks in when Faisal gets there, and his characters, in my opinion, the best part of all the movies. He's my favorite thing of any of the films. Well, technically one film split into two parts, but he's my favorite thing of Gangs of Wasseypur for sure. His story and the performance from that guy is fucking phenomenal, and we'll get to it. But in part two has like some of the best scenes. Anyways, that's like all my good stuff I could pretty much say for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that, and you know, like, I mean, there's so many good lines, and even I think part two might have better lines, but again, the dialogue when we're not taking the time to explain something, like explain what business they're in. Oh, they're in the coal trading, they're in the mine training, they're in, like, I don't think we needed all that exposition. Like, they're bad guys. I don't think we care what they're doing. But like you said, when the movie is about the silly chase scenes, like with the guns blowing up in their hands and them all, you know, and they're chasing the guy, get him, don't let him get away. Yeah. Like, that's all like really great, well-timed comedy. Yeah. I think works really well. I completely agree with you. Yeah, I think that when Faisal gets there and you start to see what he is, you're kind of like, oh boy, okay, this is where it's gonna pick up a little bit, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna okay. I'm down for this. We got something going here now. You know, I see. Great. Yeah, and you see the magic. Like, everybody's performance in the room is just elevated when he starts to get there. The way he looks, great point. The way he walks, everything starts to kind of get ratcheted up, and I'm like, I want to see more of this guy. I want to see some more of this guy. I like this. Point. This is working out for me now. Yes. So yeah, I think yes, that is most of part one. What else do we have on part one? Do we have anything else on part one that we want to talk about?
Let's see. No, I mean, again, those are a lot of my good things I had to say about it, but overall, yeah, man, it's just too long. I felt like the main story is not too different from any other gangster stories. Maybe gangster stories are just, you know, destined to be that way for across the board. I don't know, but I'm dying to see something a little more interesting in this genre. And I don't think I'm not saying that Gangs of Wasseypur how to do that, but it just kind of because of that, it falls sort of like in line with everything else I've seen. I would, like you said, I would not put this above almost a lot of the movies we've seen, just because of the sheer magnitude of it and the lack of sort of output you get from it in relation, like English, which is thoroughly entertaining throughout. This one can have moments where it's like, okay, why couldn't we just make a show or something, you know? Yes. There's a moments where I'm like, this probably would have worked better as a show than sitting here for 5 hours. Like, I saw a line that was like, they were trying to get people to watch this. Like, they were trying to convince theaters to be like, yeah, play my 5-hour movie. And they're like, no, what are you talking about? I'm not playing your 5-hour movie. You're gonna, and then that forced them to split it to two parts. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, you know, man, like, that was probably a good move, dude. No one's gonna sit there, you know, pissing in their pants for 5 hours. There's no way. Right. So anyways, yeah, overall, I think Jen hit it on that. Yeah. It's not for me. It's probably just not for me. And it was definitely heavy dialogue, and you know, but there are parts where I appreciate it, but overall I would not watch this again for sure.
Yeah, I would I would echo that completely. Like, they're just, you know, it was a lot a lot of exposition on the top, and it's just like, again, now there are moments in the film that are just saved by small dialogue moments, and that's what made the film very bearable for me. At least bearable's a bad way to put that. I don't mean it in a bad, negative way, but that's what it was. The lines and the good cinematography, the shot on film, the look of it being gritty, all that stuff kind of saved it. And I do think the end scene, which we should probably talk about, Sardar's death,
demise,
the cliffhanger, who did inevitable. It, who had it all work out. But that was a greatly, shot scene. That was really well done. The way he got out and kind of had the dramatic live or not live, and you don't really know. But you're like, there's so many holes in him. I was like, there's no way this guy's living, right? Wait a minute,
man. I've never been shot in the head, but I didn't realize you could live that long with a bullet lodged in your temporal lobe. I was like, but it was fun. I like that part. Yeah, that was really fun to see.
Yeah,
him come out and have like one last little, that was he didn't kill anybody, but like that was his strength moment. The guy had, he was cheese, and he had a hole in his head, and he was like, I'm still strong enough to like get up.
Yeah,
and have one last walk.
Away. Yeah,
and so
it
was good. It was cool. I like that moment.
I agree. Yeah,
well done.
So yeah, I think that that stuff is really great. Last thing I want to say that I liked about the film, and both films really, that it goes over, is I like how it.
Sure.
I like how each like lyrical song in this, obviously different than the lyrical songs we're used to.
Oh,
it's obviously clearly written for the movie, and obviously all of them are clearly written for the movie. But I mean, each of them have like their story impact. If you read the lyrics and you're going through, like, typically, I shouldn't admit this to everybody, but I don't really read the lyrics. Like, for when Pathan's final song is playing, I'm not reading the lyrics.
Fair enough. I don't read every little. I mean, I assume it's music.
Yeah,
just kind of like use it to
this
the
one you caught on quick. That I was like, oh, the story is in the songs. The story is in the song lyrics, and they're trying to get a point across, right? So, I am.
You made it. I'm glad you brought that up, because there are. I think that is actually a strength of the film, and I think it would have been stronger had I understood, like, not reading it, but like actually hearing it with knowing the language. I think would have hit me better, because there are lyrics where, I mean, according to the translation, where the singers are like cursing and saying some filthy shit, because it's like, I don't want to say it, but there's just some filthy stuff that the singers are saying. And if I could hear that in the cadence with which they are singing it, I think I would appreciate it more. But I caught that at least in the translation. So hopefully it is translated appropriately, because I thought that was pretty funny, actually, and cool.
Yeah, I thought it was great. It worked out really well.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, forgot about that.
But last little bit on Gangs of Wasseypur Part 1. Anything you want to say? Anything else you got? Any notes left? I think we got them all.
I think I got them all. I think I said what I had to say. Definitely. But there's definitely more to say, because it's not at the end of the movie, technically.
Yes, it's not the end of the movie. It's only the intermission at 2 hours and 40 minutes. Here's the intermission. So get up, go pee, and then we'll come back and talk about.
That's so funny you mentioned that. Actually, there was no intermission in this 2 hour and 40-minute movie.
Because I think the intermission is the end of the movie.
I guess so. I mean, these guys like really push the boundaries, I think, with this. I mean, I'm sure they're longer movies too, but this is a long last one too.
Oh man, it's so. Yeah, this is every commenter that said, I'm not sure you guys will like this. Congratulations, you were right. Everybody, the people who message us on Instagram, they're like, hey, I'm not sure this is going to be your vibe.
That should be the title. You guys were right.
I do want to know though, do you guys get that this movie was overrated? Is this movie overrated in India? Like, is there a contention of people that think the movie is overrated? I really want to know that.
I would, yeah. I mean, clearly there's definitely a few who are like, okay, it's pretty clear that it is one of those movies that you should, if you're into Indian cinema particularly, that you obviously should see, because it's such an epic. It is such an epic for sure. They nailed that part of the movie with flying colors.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're right. Like, I'm sure there is like, by the sheer force and effort that they put into it, I'm sure a lot of people give it its due because of it. But perhaps there is that contingency of people who are like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of effort here, but man, was I bored.
Wow, was I bored? Yes.
Wow, was I bored? Yeah, most of it I was definitely bored. And I think we can say that with confidence now. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
97% of Rotten Tomatoes, man. Wow.
97.
I mean,
yeah.
It's only had 31 reviews, but that's still pretty high. It's still a great score.
I think it did well within the things. And again, from a film perspective, it's well shot, it's well edited. They did it on film to give it that gritty look. I mean, the locations they shot at, the scope of which needs to be praised and like really, really given a lot of credit to.
I agree.
Just not my cup of tea in the first hour. We are very lucky I didn't turn this movie off. I was like,
I texted. Didn't I text you?
Yeah, you said, bro,
this movie. I was like, bro, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I can get through this.
Yeah. And that's that. I didn't watch it in one sitting. Ed watched, I think, all 5 hours in one sitting. I watched this in parts. I watched the first hour or so on Friday, like hour and 20 minutes. And I was like, you know what? I got to turn this off.
Take a break.
I got to go do something else because I'm not going to be able to finish this. Then I came back and Sardar came up and it was about his story coming up through the crime and it got much better. Much better. But yes, that's our overall review. English v. English is better than this movie. Hands down. But that's that. And so stay tuned. I think we might be right back with part 2, but thanks for watching.
Oh yeah, part 2. Thanks for watching, guys.
Like and subscribe and all that. Whoops.
Hit the bell. That love.
Yeah.
Let's get to 800.
Yeah, I think we're close. We're like 10 away.
Dude, guys, we're almost
there.
I know we're gonna make it. I know we're gonna do it.
We're gonna do it. Yeah,
we're gonna do it.
Yeah,
it's gonna be such a big day.
Yes. All right. Thank you guys so much.